Derren worked in solitude within the armory, meticulously assembling his gear. The faint hum of fluorescent lights above him provided the only sound, underscoring the isolation he felt. He paused, looking around the empty space with a puzzled frown. Normally, there was always someone around, a team member tinkering with equipment, exchanging stories, or preparing for the next mission. But tonight, it was just him. Just as he was about to shrug it off, a howl echoed through the hallways, deep and resonant. He recognized it as the call of the pack, the supernatural wolves that accompanied the team. He'd heard the howl before, but this time something was different. It carried a weight, a meaning that he couldn't quite grasp. Curiosity sparked, and he left the armory, quietly following the sounds that led him outside. He moved silently along the shadowed path to the stone courtyard. Derren stopped short, slipping behind a pillar as he took in the scene before him. In the center of the courtyard, Eli stood surrounded by the pack. Gunnar, Clara, Ashley, Karina, Desera, Jewell, and the others. He hadn't realized they were all gathered here. He watched as they moved in a slow, deliberate circle around Eli, their expressions solemn but filled with a quiet intensity. Each member approached Eli, pressing a mark into her hand one by one, as if passing a torch. As the ceremony continued, the wolves emerged from the shadows, their ethereal forms blending into the scene. Alpha, the massive black dire wolf, sat beside Clara, his steely gaze fixed on Eli with an air of approval. Beta, the grey wolf and Alpha's mate, padded over to Ashley, pressing close to her side. Omega, the half-breed, lingered near Gunnar, his eyes glinting as he looked up at him, as if seeking his approval. Then, the pack raised their heads and howled together, the haunting sound filling the night air. Derren had never witnessed anything like this before. He had known the team shared a bond beyond mere camaraderie, but this was different. It was a ritual, a rite that spoke of deep ties and sacred oaths. Derren felt a strange sense of reverence watching it unfold. He could see Eli's expression, the way she closed her eyes, breathing in the moment. Her face glowed with a mixture of pride and humility as she raised her head to join the howl, her voice melding with the others until they were one unified call. He remained in the shadows, transfixed, until the ceremony ended and the pack started to break apart, laughing and celebrating the way only a family could. Derren backed away before they noticed him, heading back into the armory, a feeling of awe lingering in his chest. Later that night, Derren found Gunnar alone by the fire pit, gazing into the flames that crackled and danced under the dark sky. Without a word, he sat down next to him, lost in thought. After a moment, he cleared his throat. I saw what happened earlier. The ceremony. I've never seen anything like that before. Eli's part of the pack now. Gunnar nodded, glancing over at him with a small smile. Yeah, she's pack now. It was her induction. We mark new members that way, welcome them into the family. Derren's curiosity deepened. Why all the ritual? I mean, I get that you're all close, but this felt ancient, like something from another world. It is, Gunnar replied, his tone serious. The pack goes beyond just being a team. We're family, in a way that's as old as time. It's about loyalty, trust, and an unbreakable bond. Once you're in for life. The ceremony is how we seal that commitment. Derren nodded, trying to process the gravity of Gunnar's words. And you've all been through it. Ashley, Karina, Clara, everyone. Gunnar leaned back, crossing his arms. Every single one of us. It's a choice. Nobody's forced into it, but once you're in, you don't walk away. Eli made her choice tonight, and now she's one of us, bound by the same oath. Derren stared into the fire, feeling the weight of what he'd witnessed. He had always thought of the pack as a close-knit team, but he was starting to see that it was something much deeper. He could still hear the echo of their howl in his mind, the raw power of it resonating with something primal within him. "I think I get it," he murmured, more to himself than to Gunnar. "It's like a family, but one forged in fire." Gunnar looked at him, his eyes thoughtful. "You don't have to understand it fully right now. Just know that if you ever decide to join, you'd be welcome. But it's not a decision to be made lightly." Derren glanced at Gunnar, a small smile forming on his lips. "Thanks. I'll keep that in mind." They sat in silence after that, each lost in their thoughts as the fire crackled between them. Derren couldn't shake the feeling that he'd witnessed something profound, something that would change the way he saw the pack and his place among them forever. 4 months had passed since their fierce encounter with Ultranacious, the Demon King. While most of the wounds had healed, Gunnar's mechanical arm had been feeling unusually heavy, as if weighed down by an unseen force. He'd chalked it up to regular wear and tear, but Eli noticed something off. "Hey, boss, something seems wrong," Eli said as she studied his arm during a routine maintenance check. "Mind if I take a closer look?" "Go for it," Gunnar replied, though there was a shadow of doubt in his eyes. He had faced Ultranacious head-on and emerged victorious, but remnants of that battle haunted him more than he cared to admit. Eli began her adjustments, recalibrating and fine-tuning when Eliana Vale entered the room. She paused, her ethereal presence commanding attention as her gaze zeroed in on Gunnar. "You're carrying something," she whispered, her voice barely audible but resonant with tension. Gunnar furrowed his brow. "What do you mean? I thought we vanquished all of Ultranacious's power. What's left?" Eliana's eyes narrowed, her hands hovering over his arm. She murmured something in the ancient language of her people, and a faint, ominous darkness began to seep from the seams of his metal limb, writhing as though it had a life of its own. "This shadow," she said, her tone steely, "is a remnant of the Demon King's essence. It hid itself deep within you, waiting for a moment of weakness." Eli gasped, stepping back as the darkness twisted and coiled. Jewell appeared in the doorway, her face ashen but determined. "We need to contain this now." Eli and Jewell worked in tandem, while Eliana chanted a protective incantation. The room grew colder, and Gunnar gritted his teeth, feeling the shadow clawing its way through his circuits and into his nerves, almost as if Ultranacious himself were trying to seize control. "This isn't just a shadow," Gunnar managed through clenched teeth. "It's his will, his rage, his power. I can feel it." "We'll get it out," Eli assured him, though her hands trembled. She adjusted the arm's inner mechanisms to expose the shadow, and Jewell quickly trapped it in a vial with a swift spell. The darkness seemed to scream as it was sealed, the faint, twisted face of Ultranacious momentarily visible within the swirling black mist before it vanished. "Is it gone?" Gunnar asked, breathing heavily, his gaze fixed on the vial that now held the Demon King's essence. "For now," Eliana replied, though her expression remained troubled. "But shadows like this often linger, even after they're purged." They all stood in tense silence, the weight of what they had just encountered settling heavily around them. Gunnar flexed his fingers, feeling lighter but aware that a deeper darkness might still linger. Eli then glanced at his face, noting the scar running across his eye. "You know, we could also take a look at your eye, Gunnar. There's still residual energy there too." He shook his head, a steely resolve in his gaze. "No, that stays. It's a reminder of what we fought and what we defeated. But it's also a warning. This battle isn't over." Jewell placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We'll face whatever comes next, just like we always have." They nodded, each of them feeling the renewed weight of their shared mission. The Demon King might be gone, but his shadow was still a threat, a reminder of the darkness they had vanquished and the vigilance they still needed to maintain. With Reagan's departure to inform Sophia of the pack's decision, the workshop returned to its usual bustle. Gunnar, now free from the darkness that had plagued him since his battle with the Demon King Ultranacious, felt a renewed sense of clarity and purpose. His demeanor was lighter, his movements more assured, and the subtle tension that had hung over him seemed to dissipate. As the pack gathered around to check their equipment and prepare for what lay ahead, Eli couldn't help but feel a sense of relief seeing Gunnar back to his old self. The uncertainty of the past few months seemed to fade, replaced by a renewed spirit that coursed through the team. Reagan's mission to HQ marked the beginning of their new partnership with Homeland Security. Yet, it was the camaraderie within the pack that mattered most. Here, among friends and allies, they had forged a bond that no threat could easily break. Though new challenges awaited, they were ready to face them as one, with Gunnar leading the way, as steadfast and unyielding as ever. 2 days after Reagan returned to headquarters, Gunnar was surprised to see Sophia walking into the workshop, her expression serious. She rarely visited Echo Division's hidden base, preferring to handle matters through encrypted communications. But today, her presence indicated something urgent. Gunnar motioned for her to take a seat, sensing that whatever she'd come to say required his full attention. Without preamble, she reached into her bag, pulling out a file and placing it on the table between them. "Sophia," Gunnar said, eyeing the file. "Didn't expect to see you here in person. What's this all about?" Sophia took a deep breath, glancing around the room before she spoke. "I came to bring you this personally. It's about the Shadow Realm Bar, and Shade." Gunnar raised an eyebrow. He'd heard whispers about the bar, a haven for supernatural beings who wandered into the mortal world, but he'd never had cause to investigate it directly. "Go on." "Shade came to me," she said, her voice tinged with a hint of disbelief. "Out of the blue. He confessed something I'd only suspected before. He's a supernatural being. And he's been keeping tabs on the bar for quite some time. He told me what goes on there, who frequents it, and how it all works." Sophia leaned in, her tone urgent. "The bar's front is a dive joint, a place where humans mingle without any clue they're rubbing elbows with beings from other realms. But in the back, that's where the real action is. There's a portal that leads to the Shadow Realm, a neutral space where supernaturals gather, barter in artifacts, and exchange information. It's a place for them to be themselves without fear of exposure." Gunnar took the file, flipping it open to scan the details she'd provided. "And what does he want from us?" "He wants you to investigate," Sophia replied. "There's a lot of activity there lately, more than usual. He thinks Black Dawn might be trying to infiltrate it. He's heard talk of agents moving in the shadows, asking questions, seeking something, though he's not sure what. Shade's too slippery to get caught up in anything, but he's convinced they're looking for a way to expand their reach." Gunnar leaned back, absorbing the information. Black Dawn's resurgence had everyone on edge, and the idea of them infiltrating a haven for supernatural beings was troubling. "And you want me to go in?" Sophia nodded. "You and the pack. I don't have anyone else who can handle that kind of environment. Shade's already taken a risk by telling me what he has. He wouldn't have come forward unless he was genuinely concerned." Gunnar's gaze hardened as he closed the file. Why now? Why did Shade choose this moment to reveal himself? Sophia hesitated before speaking, as if weighing her words carefully. "It's because of the pack, Gunnar. You've become something of a legend among the supernatural circles. They're wary of you, of all of us. Word is, even the creatures that walk through that bar are careful not to mention your name. They're spooked." She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "They're saying you're the one who killed Ultranacious. They say you and your team took down the Demon King and scattered Black Dawn's forces. They call you the Pack, and the supernatural world is watching, some out of fear, others out of respect." Gunnar's eyes narrowed, a mix of surprise and curiosity flashing across his face. He hadn't expected his reputation to precede him in such a way. "So, they think we're legends now?" "More than that. They think you're untouchable," Sophia said. But that's also why they're wary. They don't know what to make of you. And Black Dawn, they're not just licking their wounds. They're regrouping, and I think they're looking for a foothold in that bar. If they can get influence there, they could recruit, manipulate, maybe even control certain factions within the supernatural world. Gunnar nodded slowly. You want me to go in, feel out the situation, and if Black Dawn's there, deal with it. Sophia nodded. Exactly. I don't have any assets who could get close, let alone deal with what's going on. But you do. I need you to get in there, gather intel, and, if necessary, remind them why they're so afraid of us. Gunnar closed the file, his decision made. All right. I'll take the pack, and we'll head to the bar. We'll see what Black Dawn's up to, and if they're trying to make a move, we'll stop them. Thank you, Gunnar, Sophia said, relief evident in her eyes. You're the only one who can handle this. Just be careful. The Shadow Realm Bar isn't a place that takes kindly to outsiders. Even legends have to tread lightly there. Gunnar gave her a confident smile, the kind that belied the danger ahead. We'll handle it. And if Black Dawn thinks they can stake a claim on our territory, they're in for a rude awakening. As Sophia stood to leave, she paused, looking back at him with a final piece of advice. Watch your back, Gunnar. Even legends can fall. With that, she left, leaving Gunnar alone with the file and a mission that would test the pack's strength, cunning, and their growing reputation as protectors. And perhaps something more.
Well, you found your way to the end, haven't you? That must mean you're curious, and we love curiosity around here. Before you vanish into the ether, take a moment to subscribe. It's just a click, and trust me, you'll want to stay in the loop for what comes next. And while you're at it, give the video a like. The energy exchange is good for you. Hit that notification bell too. You wouldn't want to miss out on any of our magical misadventures. Who knows what I might conjure up next. Alright, off you go. But remember, I'll know if you didn't subscribe. See you on the other side.